2, 3, 4 blue, yellow, green things and these at the same time?
No, actually, I learned this in a bar when I was probably about 10.
Oh. When you were tying up stems?
Yes. All right, forget it. Anyway, hey! Welcome back to a special episode of 1980s Now. We are a weekly examination of 1980s media and its continued influence today, right now, at Southern Fried Gaming Expo.
Rally the troops.
This will be great when they hear it on the audio version of the podcast because it'll sound more than five people are here. Somehow, the three of you.
Thank you. Those in the arena?
Really count it. Yeah. Hey, my name is Will. And joining me, as always, are my friends and co-hosts, Kat and John. Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
In the same room for the first time ever.
Thank you for emphasizing that. Thank you.
So, John, for weeks, Kat's been teasing that she wanted to hug you. Mm-hmm. And I was concerned we might need to get a court involved.
Yeah.
How did that go? Is that okay?
It's been okay. It's not been abusive.
Okay, very good.
No court, no restraining orders required. No blinking twice if I need an adult. None of that's taking place, so it's going all right.
I was concerned. Yeah, good.
I spread out my ambushes. I kept
Right.
them evenly spaced
Right.
so it wasn't
Right.
too much.
It's
of
not
an
just
assault.
one
Yeah.
attack. It's like death by 1,000 cuts, over time.
Yeah.
I'm getting gradually hugged.
And meanwhile, I also have not met John in person, although we've known each other virtually for a couple of years now. I was just standing awkwardly by while Kat hugged you for which seemed like an incredibly inappropriate amount of time. But that's okay. All right, that's fine.
Inappropriate's relative, though, I think. So.
Okay, so hey, you're not here to hear us talk about our issues that should otherwise be aired out in therapy. But usually, so every week we have a podcast where we talk about some aspect of 1980s culture and often how it's continued or connected to, something going on today. And today we are coming to you with something appropriate with regard to those parameters and also for our venue here because we are, as I mentioned, live at the Southern Fried Gaming Expo.
Excuse me.
I thought that was offensive to you.
No, I'm just so excited to be here that it burped.
I thought you
for
found
sure it was
something
killing you.
chuckle-worthy.
Or I got the venue wrong. You're like, we're at Dragon Con, you idiot.
Where are we?
Yeah. Anyway, but so keeping with the theme of Southern Fried Gaming Expo, we have a true crime, which we also do on our show from time to time. Takes place in the 1980s. It's not so much a crime as it's a travesty, as we say. And it has to do with a notorious, infamous, dare I say, video game series by Atari. What are you doing?
I'm excited.
Oh, I thought you were doing the Donkey Kong.
He's
intro
dancing.
for a
He's
second.
dancing.
I can't do anything without getting the third degree. Was it funny? Did you burp? What happened? Are you doing the Donkey Kong? What's happening down there?
It's almost too easy for me to reach out now. Just be like, no, stop.
Quit it.
Cut it out. Anyway, so how this usually works, as we do on our podcast every week, is I will share. Don't leave, it gets better. No one leave. Close the doors.
They're
You were
like,
here earlier when you applauded. There was a sign that says once you enter, you're contractually obligated to stay till the end. When Kat makes the show go on too long. Where do you think they thought they were? What was that? Homeschool experts.
What could they have mistaken us for?
This is in 1990s later.
oh no, that's
Hey, you! What are you doing? He's going to hunt him down.
He's going to bring him back for us.
Okay. Very good. Yes. Oh, good. Oh, look, this gentleman's got
He's
an
going
adventure
nowhere.
shirt
He's
on.
got a, yeah, look
He's
at
got
that.
a Warren Robinette's masterpiece on his chest.
All
He's
right,
going
very
nowhere
good.
for
How
this.
appropriate, too, as we'll soon learn. Okay, so here's how it goes. I tell Kat and John, who are, of varying degrees familiar with the stories, oftentimes they have no clue about anything about the story we're talking about. We've actually talked about crimes before. We talked about a crime of sorts with the Cabbage Patch Kids origin last time. So this one's a little bit different because I know John knows a little bit about the story because as everyone knows, in addition to being a co-host here, he hosts his very own podcast, Gen X Grown Up, and they've been very active throughout the convention
Super dorks.
this weekend.
Woo!
So I'll share some information for them.
Easy, everyone. Enough applause. Thank you. No, really. Let's move on with this show.
All right. That's a smattering. I'm not going to sweeten it the way I'm going to sweeten the earlier applause. Just so you know.
Thanks.
I'm going to take that earlier one and layer it.
Can you add yawns?
I might just take it out. Just Yeah. And the door slamming.
Now more leaving.
So I'm going to share a little bit of information. And we'll take a little break. I listened to one true crime podcast, and it was a guy talking very seriously, and they played music behind him. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. I don't know.
I think so.
And then he would leave off like on a cliffhanger, and then they would change the music. And then he would start talking again. So it was almost like commercial breaks that we're used to. But instead, these guys will have an opportunity to stop me whenever they want, ask questions, or otherwise annoy the hell out of me, which is usually what happens during the show. Okay.
He says that like he doesn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And yet
there's some folks here who can vouch for the fact that I don't. I do not enjoy it.
And yet it's what brought him this fame thus far. So.
Yes. Right, these three fine folks here today. Don't sound like 30 strong. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to play a little music here. Oh, I have an intro. I don't usually have an intro, guys. So again, hopefully you can hear this music at all. I don't know. It seems. Let me test this one thing out here. Let's see if this is exciting at all when this happens. I don't know if that's good. All right, whatever. Here we go. Okay.
I'm excited.
Let's let this music start, and then I'll take a drink of water.
We can do this. We can stay on your side.
Usually, I can mute myself when I cough, but you guys are in the same room. I was like, I'll mute when I cough. That's
perfect.
Okay.
You'll never know.
All right, here we go. Our tale today is a tale like no other. A tale of adventure and quests of a mighty kingdom on the edge of collapse. A puzzle tied to the stars and the very nature of the universe. Clever heroes and ruthless usurpers. Mysteries solved and treasures lost. Secrets buried in the desert. And mighty champions betrayed. Join us as we adventure for the treasures of Swordquest. Again, the real show is going to be fantastic if you guys want to come back 2024. We'll get it worked out.
Wow.
Our tale
Now it's
begins
happening.
with a humble gray dot. This guy knows what I'm talking about. He's not really paying attention, though. The year 1980. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Because that'll allow me to hear my own voice better, and I love nothing more than that, being honest. I'm really being honest. That's why this script is so long. You'll see. You'll be leaving like those two ladies.
If you think you loved Will's voice, you have no idea how much Will
Get in
loves
line,
Will's voice.
right back here. Our tale begins with a humble gray dot. The year 1980. The age of Atari was upon us. 1 million units were sold and 12.5 games released. One was Adventure. He doesn't know what shirt he's wearing. Oh, he does. Okay, very good. Conceived as a graphic version of text games like Zork, it is now hailed as one of the most influential video games of all time.
Love it.
Eat that, Fortnite. That's much better. Adventure was the first action-adventure and console... He's going to stand. Every time I say adventure, he's going to stand up.
Are you pushing a button to make him stand up?
I don't think so. If I knew where the buttons were, I'd have that volume louder. We're good. Adventure was the first action-adventure and console fantasy game. In 1981, it was enough that it delivered on the promise of its name, sending players on a quest to recover an enchanted treasure stolen by an evil magician.
The chalice.
But slaying dragons, finding hidden keys, and recovering the goblet were just the beginning. For concealed within Adventure was a second, stranger quest, one unknown to the adventurer. Again, imagine it louder than that.
Unknown to the adventurer.
Did you play Adventure, Kat?
I did not.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I played Missile Command. I played Pac-Man. I played E.T. Breakout. I can keep going.
Some of those would be
But
relevant.
Adventure.
Okay. John,
Okay.
you played Adventure, right? Sure.
Don't worry, Kat. I've played enough Adventure for the three of us.
Okay, very good.
It's okay. Yes.
I remember when I first played Adventure, I got a Christmas one, whenever it came out, 80, I guess. I just read.
I just read.
Comprehension. It was. I stayed up until I finished it. And those games you could take in level 1, I'm talking about. You could take just a few hours. It was fantastic. But I will admit to you, you guys are familiar with Adventure? You played Adventure? I thought
He
for the
better be.
longest time. No, I said hours. Yes, I was like 7 years old. Oh, we got the Adventure Champion
And it was
here.
level
Oh.
1.
Did you leave your trophy at home?
There's only 2 castles, Will. 3 hours?
Okay, maybe it was the medium setting. Let me start again. I'm going to edit in this word. Most difficult level. I'll edit that back in later. But I thought for the longest...
3 hours?
I thought for the longest time... Hours. I didn't give a specific number. You guys aren't going to tie me down. I thought for the long... This will show you why it took hours. I thought for the longest
Because we were
time,
there interrupting him.
the sword was an arrow, and I was using it backwards. Did anybody else? No, just me. All right, back to the story. Here we go.
It still worked.
In August of 1980, a youth from Salt Lake City sent a handwritten letter to Atari, claiming he had, quote, found something strange while exploring the catacombs within the game's Black Castle. He detailed how he discovered a tiny, hidden speck and how he used this gray dot to enter a mysterious, otherwise inaccessible room elsewhere in the game. There, the boy discovered the final treasure, a secret. The hidden room revealed a mystery that, hey, come on, sit down. I don't care if you're on Gen X Road Up. That's it. The detente is off, George.
Wait, how do you use a dot? I don't understand that part.
Yeah.
Which is the dot or the speck that you don't understand?
Spec.
The speck.
Yeah, the spec.
Yeah.
How do you use the spec?
We're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, it was a secret single invisible pixel that you could find, and it was visible when it passed through the other walls, but it was not documented, and that's how we're getting to the...
Let me do one
Okay.
more sentence, and then I want to out.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're bringing the dot into the room. There, the boy discovered the final treasure, a secret. The hidden room revealed a mystery that kept so rudely interrupted before we could hear. A mystery that had been withheld from the world with one simple message. All right, folks, what did it say? Yes!
What?
Created by Warren Robinette.
Okay. This is news to me, and also you all weren't coordinated at all. I heard blah 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 blah
Yeah,
blah,
so, yeah.
blah.
Perfect. Got it.
So this is during the era, Kat, where game designers did not get credit for video games. There weren't credits on the box.
Yeah.
It was made, these are works for hire, so the company could do whatever they want anyway, but it would just say Atari, and you'd never know.
And more importantly, they were not compensated commensurately with the amount of revenue the game made. So they were just paid like a staff wage, no matter how successful the game was. Right. It rubbed them the wrong way as creatives.
Yeah. That seems
Ask
a little
Will, he'll
unfair.
tell you.
So I'm still waiting for it. A cent. I guess I got $1
You
from
got
the
$1.
post.
It's on your finger. Look, it's right there.
Warren Robinette, the architect of adventure, was no longer with Atari by the time of the game's release. So he was certain the company would be angered by his act of rebellion and strip his secret credit from future releases of adventure. He was wrong. Instead, the unusual tale of the Grey Dot became the first and best known Easter egg in all of video game lore.
Ooh.
With adventure a success, fueled by the intrigue of the Grey Dot, Atari looked to spawn a successor. But before long, their next evolution in gaming would grow into something wholly new, uniquely ambitious, and difficult to tame.
To tame?
He's trying to make this as interesting as possible. It's a very...
It is super interesting. You don't have to work. It does the work for you. It's okay.
It's awesome.
Depending on the audience, I suppose.
Yes. At least the folks remaining appreciate the story.
Well, they haven't left.
I think we Katie barred the door. Atari's new adventure series was advertised as early as 1981 with 2 games promised for the following year. One article hailed Swordquest as the most promising of Atari's forthcoming products. A, quote, 4-part epic mystery that, believe it or not, may take a full year to unravel, end quote. The whole thing was a quote. The Swordquest saga would follow twins, Tara. Is it Tara? You say Tara?
Tara?
Tara.
And Tor on a sprawling journey for the Sword of Ultimate Sorcery. bringing them into conflict with their parents.
No button.
That's not the tag yet. Into conflict with their parents' murderer, the evil King Tyrannus. No, not yet.
Still no.
Each chapter will lead into the next, but could also be played as a standalone adventure. Nothing like it had been attempted before. And, not yet, for good reason. For the scope of the ambitious story was only the beginning of Atari's audacity. Yeah, that's it.
There it is. Yes.
Does this make any sense at all so far?
Yes, I'm following. I'm trying to listen
Okay.
very carefully.
Kat, could you recap for us?
All their names start with the letter T. Terra, Tor.
That is a detail. Yes.
Tyrannus? What was their father's
never
name?
The big thing is that, this game Adventure has this little, and I feel like, corporations, movies, TV shows, these companies, they do this all the time, right? They find out, they distill something down to the one little thing that they think people love. You were talking about this sort of on one of your panels. Mm-hmm. And they think, we'll just do that.
Yeah. This must be the thing they loved. Right.
So we'll hide a bunch of stuff in another game, and you have to find it and know where to put it.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. That's how I sum it up. So they started making a series of games. That was their inspiration.
Okay, so they're capitalizing on the accidental thing that the
success of the
other guy
right.
had done.
Easter egg.
Okay.
Like to iterate upon the success and the popularity, really, of the secret thing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and they went all out, as we'll learn here.
Oh, yeah.
Is this now the second thing like this after the first one in Adventure?
Yes, Swordquest, the Furious 4, worlds, yep. Now we're getting into it, yes. Thank you for clarifying. All that other stuff we're going to cut out when we actually air the podcast. We're going to start now here.
Yeah, right.
What was your question?
So is Swordquest the second opportunity for people
for like an Easter egg type?
Or were there other Easter eggs happening?
I think it's not so much that they created Easter eggs. It was that the first was a hidden Easter egg that was not intentional.
Okay.
And this is the first we're like, hey, maybe we can make that part of the game
First
rather
intentional
than something
Easter
that was
egg,
not supposed to be there.
Because, yes, there are other Easter eggs in other games. And
The discoverability, now they're intentionally trying to do that as
Gotcha.
part of the game. Yep.
All right, cool.
to win each game, players would unearth clues concealed not only within the To win each game, players would unearth clues concealed not only within the confines of their TV screens, but also in a companion comic book that accompanied each cartridge. Since Atari's parent Warner Communications also owned DC Comics, they recruited royalty to tell the tale of this epic quest. Roy Thomas, best known for introducing Conan the Barbarian to a generation of comic book readers. Conan. And Jerry Conway, who drafted the gut-wrenching death of Gwen Stacy, were brought in to write. Art was provided by legendary George Perez, who was working on DC's best-selling New Teen Titans at the time, and Dick Giordano, whose pedigree extended back to Charlton Comics. But more was to come. A treasure hunt as daring as Swordquest demanded an equally compelling prize, and Atari planned to exceed all expectations. So, what do you imagine? So you don't know this story, obviously.
Right.
John knows the story. What could possibly
He lived it.
just fantasize? What could be a prize that you could win an Atari? Win an Atari game, I guess, beat everybody else that you would get. Ooh. No, not you. You know the answer.
I imagine. Well, as I would have wanted, like maybe another Atari game.
Okay.
Or like a plaque.
Okay. Very good. And
Kinda.
so, John, in 1980s dollars, what would an Atari game be valued at? Let's see, the most successful game.
I know.
Really?
You mean like
you know, right? Because of that.
Like retail.
That money you won when you, money you used. Yeah.
Retail.
What was the game you got again? Cubert? No.
Frogger.
Frogger.
It was Frogger. Yeah. It was $27.
All right, so
They raised like
$27.
$20-$30, right?
Okay,
Depending
so
upon the publisher. Yeah.
Yep.
Let me tell you what Atari did, because they were nuts. The talisman of penultimate truth, the chalice of light, the crown of life, the philosopher's stone. To their great fortune or misadventure, Warner's also owned the Franklin Mint. You guys remember the Franklin Mint? There was like so many commercials.
Yes.
An Enterprise? Oh,
Yeah.
you do?
I'm
collecting, right, yes.
I'm collecting Star Trek plates. Yep.
There were so many things I wanted. My parents were like, no, we're not spending money on that garbage.
Yeah. Too bad it's all worth a ton now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, not
wow.
all. Some.
So they own the Franklin Mint. That's where we are. So much as these that I just listed earlier sounded like mere in-game treasures, Cat, Warner was uniquely positioned to bring these artifacts to dazzling life. And so they did. Each chapter of Swordquest was to culminate in a contest allowing a clever hero to claim one of these real-life treasures, each valued at $25,000.
What?
But wait, there's more. What's that? I missed it. I stepped on my
I was
joke.
playing the dramatic music. That's all.
Okay. But wait, there's more. Now you're stepping on my joke. But wait, there's more. The 4 paragons who conquered each chapter were to face one another in a final challenge to claim the Sword of Ultimate Sorcery, a jewel-encrusted blade worth $50,000. And they were talking about 1980s dollars, too. I mean, that looked like I don't know what it would look worth now, but at least double, I would imagine, at least. 4 times.
And it's not just the value in retail, or appreciation. It's all precious materials. It's real gold. It's real gemstones. It's real stuff, right?
And it's since the
not a prop. Yeah.
And in the 1980s, we're expecting an apocalypse at any moment, nuclear apocalypse.
Right.
Then you've got something to trade, or you know,
gold's what you need, right? When you're fighting off new radioactive zombies.
Exactly. That's right.
So these things existed? Like they were made?
Oh, well, yeah, here we go. A treasure hunt like no other, you say, Cat.
That's what I said.
A quest for the ages, yes, but a tale perhaps too good to be true.
Prophetic, Will. Very prophetic.
Well, yeah, I have the benefit of 40 years of hindsight. Earthworld. Is that it? Are you doing the Cat and John show over here? Is that what's going on?
I was commenting on the change in music, but then it went back. There's something going on with that. Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, it's just supposed to be interesting. All right.
All right.
The words are what's more important.
We're very sorry we interrupted you to compliment you on your production value. Please proceed.
If you're going to compliment me, use the microphone. Though. We've talked about this before.
I'm trying.
I don't want emails when we're recording to it. Thank you. Earthworld, the first of the planned 4-part adventure series, arrived in October of 1982 with promises of Zodiac-themed adventures, pitting players against challenges like the Dark Bull Pit of Taurus. Did I get that right? And the deadly spears of Sagittarius. But those dreaming of a thrilling game that would up the stakes from adventure would have to wait another month for the Raiders of the Lost Ark video game. Because let's face it, that was much better. Instead, Earthworld's challengers were met with an intellectual prize, roaming through a dozen bland rooms. True, some included reflex-related minigames like a smaller version of Frogger, but mostly players found magical objects.
Cat just woke up.
Somebody said Frogger.
For $29.99, carried them to different rooms and hoped some combination of the artifacts would reveal a clue in the form of a pair of numbers. Does that sound complicated enough already?
Oh, man.
It's like the dot times however many things. There's a lot. All right.
Wow. There is a lot
So
going on
then
here.
you find numbers. If you're lucky, you get these numbers. But
it gets better, and then it gets worse again, though. So go ahead.
here's the better part. But what to do with those mysterious digits? A true sage.
That's true.
Prognosticator of retro knowledge.
It's as if he were as old as me and been there.
Yes. And equally disappointed. Spoiler alert.
Oh, no.
Do you have a sound for spoiler alert?
I do, but it's on a different screen, and I'm not going to be bothered doing it right now. Imagine it, and it's all its loud glory.
I could do it.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm great.
Oh.
What?
John's great. John's great. Okay, here we go.
I wish I were great, too.
What's happening?
I'm lost.
I'm fine. Soon, the most adept players discovered that each set of numbers mapped to a page and panel. in the game's corresponding comic book. Isn't this crazy?
Yes.
So you get numbers in the game, then you get the comic book, and then you look at the comic book, you get the right page and panel number, and there is an artfully concealed word. Mm-hmm. I'm picturing like Magic Eye. I've never seen one of the comic books, did you?
It's cleverly italicized.
Or is it like Highlights magazine? No, it's not even highlights. It's
No, it's not that dramatic. It's in the text bubbles usually. It's in the speech bubbles. Or it's usually like italicized. But you didn't know to look at that word until you found page whatever, panel this.
Gotcha.
But the concept that I played the game, that in Atari I had to imagine what things were, and then to be able to take the information from the game and take it right back to the comic book where the lore is, it's great promise.
If they delivered.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could have caught me doing this, really.
No.
Even with the Frogger minigame, still, no.
All right, I'm on the fence.
I'll just play that part
yeah,
and then move
yeah.
on. Okay.
Soon, the most adept players discovered artfully concealed word. 5 of these words formed the game-winning phrase, quest in tower, talisman found. And with, here we go, this is what I was thinking about before. And with 12 rooms, 16 objects, and an untold number of complex combinations of those, it's amazing that anyone successfully completed this game at all.
Did anyone?
Which one honest Atari employee referred to as, quote, this is true, the kind of punishment a judge might mete out to a convicted serial killer.
Have either of you played one of these Swordquest games?
I tried it
research,
for literally like
no Frogger. Yes.
45 seconds.
And what happened?
And I turned it right off.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It had some great ideas.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a dot, it was a little guy running.
Yep.
And as long as you like little running guys, that's fun. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, it was a blocky mess.
Yeah. And I didn't try it after I had played Raiders. So.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know.
Spoiled you.
Yeah.
Spoiled you.
John, you played this?
Yeah.
To the end?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay, so then you're not a serial killer then, possibly.
Let's not leap to conclusions.
Yes. Still waiting for those fingerprints results to come back. Yet, in the months that followed, thousands of hopeful heroes embraced the torture and deciphered the code, and eventually 8 supreme sages of sorcery.
Soup sounds good.
There was soup involved.
That's great.
He ate soup.
As a reward, soup from the Franklin Mint.
And now Kat's hungry. Is there soup?
That's something I can
I was
identify
told
with.
there would be soup. No, 8 supreme sages. Is there sage in the soup? I love sage.
Sage.
Of sorcery, the title granted to those correctly identifying the phrase. They were. This song is so long. All right, so these people are now ready to battle one another.
So there's 8 supreme sages.
Yes, from the first game. So they got down to 8 people.
Okay, so no eating. Got it.
And so then these, no eating. Here's what actually happens.
Yep.
In May of 1983, the champions of Earthworld gathered at Atari headquarters for a contest that was equal parts Willy Wonka, The Last Starfighter, and absolute garbage. A diverse group, including high school and college students, a housewife, and a Coast Guard lieutenant, raced to best a modified version of Earthworld. Their bounty, the Talisman of Penultimate Truth, an 18-karat solid gold disc studded with 12 diamonds, the birthstones of the 12 zodiac signs, and a miniature white gold sword set atop it. Ultimately, in a mere 47 minutes, 20-year... I see what's going on over here. I'm just ignoring it.
What?
20-year-old... Let me get to this. Just let me get to this one page. 20-year-old Stephen Bell emerged victorious. This is important.
What?
Okay, I'll listen.
Well, all right,
I will
go ahead,
listen.
John.
Okay.
You are prejudging what's happening over here.
I don't trust Kat. All right, what do you got? What do you want? What's up?
We're enjoying the discussion.
Oh, okay, then let's get back.
We're nodding, and she's looking at me like, oh, really? Incredulously?
Okay.
And I'm nodding, yeah, really?
Oh, okay, very good.
You told us not to interrupt and not to get...
No, you can interrupt. I told you to. All right, you're right. Either way, I'm losing this.
He
Okay.
told me not to. I'm trying
Ultimately,
not to.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ultimately, in a mere 47 minutes, which is far shorter than this podcast episode will be. 20-year-old Stephen Bell emerged victorious, attributing his win to his knowledge of astrology. and his ability to decipher the unique clues provided. And although Bell claimed he was excited to show his prize to his parents, he also spoke of selling the medallion to buy a car.
Oh.
Perhaps he longed to drive away from his mother and father for repeatedly shouting, "Go outside."
It's mildly offensive.
So he won this thing.
Identify.
Yeah, so he won the first, yes.
Okay. All right. Dun, dun,
Oh.
dun, 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 dun.
I want what you're smoking. By the time the Earth World competition took place, the first game we just talked about, the second game, Fire World, had been out for 3 months. Having learned some lessons from their frustratingly difficult first game, Atari reduced the number of rooms to 10, provided better clues, and made the pattern of objects less confoundingly random. Consequently, 73 Knights of the Chalice identified the correct phrase.
Wow.
Leads to Chalice. Power abounds.
Wow.
So, Atari employed an essay contest to narrow the field to 50 contestants. Because that's what video game enthusiasts love. Homework. The competition was set for November, but in an early sign of troubles to come, it'll sound great later on. It was postponed until January 1984. In the end, Michael Rideout claimed the Chalice of Light, setting up a battle of the ages against Earthworld's champion, Stephen Bell. A battle that would never come to pass.
Aww.
For evil forces outside the realm of Swordquest had been gathering in number.
What? What could be evil forces gathering?
I'm taking some license here.
Some things are happening.
Okay.
Some things are happening.
Things
So
are happening.
they really overcompensated on making it easier.
Okay.
So my brief anecdote is that one of my dear friends in high school was one of the final 50
No way!
in Fire World.
Wow.
He hated the game, didn't know how to play it, didn't care. He deduced what the correct answers were by following the pattern and the clues without knowing how to play the game properly.
No kidding.
And then, because he's a genius anyway, wrote a great essay. He and his mom had a wonderful trip to San Francisco, where he sat down in front of the modified version of Fire World.
Right.
And promptly...
What was that? What the hell was that? Have I been fired?
I didn't see his face. I just see you pointing. I didn't know what was going on there. I was with you. John.
I don't come to your panel and smack the miniature arcade cabinet out of your hands. All right, go ahead.
And promptly did not know what to do and washed out right away. Right. But he got a free trip to San Francisco.
That's cool.
Wow.
Well, he's now a successful attorney.
So. Oh, perfect. Crafty and evil. And cheats. A year earlier, in 1982, Atari released 3 games crafted by brilliant designer Howard Scott Warshaw.
I know
who
that
we
name.
actually spoke to on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, enough name dropping. We don't need that.
John, you spoke to him on your show as well.
That's true.
Can you? I don't have one. Kat, will you please?
Okay.
Oh. All right, whatever. There we go. He does that every time.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
Very nice gentleman.
A wonderful fellow. Yes.
Incredible story of his work at Atari. He wrote a book about it. It's a great book. Anyway.
I know he made E.T.
That's right, and I'll tell you about that right now. Like the Swordquest series, Warshaw's works were influenced by Warren Robinette's great art. Unlike Swordquest, you'd think I've been practicing. It's the name of the panel.
Yeah.
Swordquest.
Welcome to Swordquest, West Justice.
It's like one of those third-party knockoff games we had in the 80s, so many.
We can't afford Swordquest. We're going to get Sword Chest.
And your mom insists it's the same thing, but you got it in a bargain bin.
Just shut up and play it. It was $30.
Unlike Swordquest, however, Warshaw kept his Easter eggs buried. In May of 1982, we had Yar's Revenge, the first game to come with its own comic, beating Earthworld by months. So Howard did that, earlier.
Ooh.
November saw the arrival of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's worth noting that Howard Scott Warshaw actually had a hand in writing the lore that went in the comic book.
Yeah. Right.
It wasn't just, hey, DC, also owned by Warner, write me some backstory. Right. He participated in the actual writing of that comic, which I think was awesome.
Nice.
He's a credit in the comic,
Very cool. Very cool.
Raiders of the Lost Ark was the true spiritual successor to Adventure that Earthworld strived to be. And as the year ended, so too did the Warshaw trilogy. As the eagerly anticipated It's Gotta Be Good, Right? E.T. filled store shelves. Unfortunately, to meet the demands of the Christmas season, development time, which was often 10 months or more, was cut to mere weeks, leading to events that would impact not only Swordquest or its little-known successor Swordquest, but the entire video game industry.
I loved E.T.
Me too.
Just gotta say.
It got a bad rap. Now, as we'll talk about, folks know E.T.'s not really responsible for the fall of video games. It became the poster child.
It's actually in large part.
It's a large part.
Why don't you try it in my voice, John?
Sorry.
You seem to get that.
Sorry, I really sword-casted that up. I apologize. It's really in large part to the games you're alluding to, the ones that were the knockoffs, the ones that were so poor.
Right.
But yeah, E.T. was the biggest disappointment that was mainstream. But
yeah,
I mean, that's why, as we get deeper in this story, things didn't go great.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
About any of this.
Well, I didn't know E.T. was bad.
Oh yeah, no, the pits were frustrating, but otherwise I enjoyed it too.
Same. Same. Yeah.
And a lot of these games, like Raiders 2, required some level of imagination to connect what you knew of the movies to the game. But that was part of it, And some games like Adventure, just the artwork on the box created a whole story for you to sort of live out.
Well,
these.
And like doing the homework that you were mentioning, it's E.T., you had to read the instructions or you didn't understand the nuances of the game. Yes. And since we didn't want to read the instructions in the first place, you just start playing and go, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I don't like it. It's
Is the goal the pits? Because I'm winning. I'm the champ.
Look, I found a flower. Is that part of it?
Am I botanist? In the years following, it became clear that numerous factors were responsible for the collapse of the video game industry in 1983. A glut of game systems, the rise of home computers, and the unchecked quality of third-party competitors. But the character who was so beloved on theater screens a year earlier had become a pariah on our game console. E.T. was considered such a singularly disappointing game that it became the face of the fall. And so it came to be that in September 1983, while warriors fought I shouldn't put these words in. Feverishly, thank you, to uncover.
Is that your speech coach over there?
He's my ventriloquist. I'm merely a dummy. No comment, John. That was too easy. Low-hanging fruit. Oh, I don't.
Oh.
Security. Oh. I don't know who let this gentleman in.
Great.
While warriors fought feverishly to uncover the treasures of Fireworld, Atari sent truckloads of unsellable cartridges to be buried in the New Mexico desert.
Nice juxtaposition there.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
That's why I wanted to say it again.
Yep. I like it.
The video game industry had imploded. Although the impact would not be felt immediately, a new king would usurp the throne. Is that how you say usurp? Usurp the throne at Atari. Jack Trammell, one of the world's leading, quote, business as war entrepreneurs, end quote, ruled Atari ruthlessly, cutting staff by 90% and earning comparisons to Darth Vader. Trammell's strategy for the failing brand.
Darth Vader.
Is this like John knows? I know John does a Darth Vader. Let's see if we
He
can
probably
keep
does
John
a better
laughing
one
too.
than I do.
I'm doing requests.
Now we're waiting, John.
Listen,
We're waiting.
layoffs.
I'm sorry for the pressure.
Your lack of employees disturbs me. How about that?
Yes.
That's all I get, really.
It would be
I
more
was
like the abundance of employees disturbed him.
I did.
He had to cut him by 90%.
It depends on really what are Darth Vader's political views. R.E. Atari.
I see.
I was just expecting a little. You went beyond, above and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tramel's strategy for the failing brand was lean and hungry, unsentimental, and driven by sales. It left little room for flights of fancy or for quests for fantasy. And so Tramel dispatched the envoys feared most throughout the land, the very destroyers of dreams, attorneys.
Oh no!
Your lack of scruples disturbs me.
Of rubles.
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 Nice.
Sorry, folks, there's another show going on in the audience. The gentleman who may maybe have made a veiled threat to me or advance. Maybe an advance, a romantic gesture. Although Atari could not simply terminate the game. So Tramel wanted to just shut the game down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the attorneys were like, well, we can't just do that. We already got this, legally we're obligated to do the game. But hang on a second.
And we have 2 previous winners that are expecting to face off at the
Right.
end of the series.
For a shot at that $50,000 prize.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still supposed to be 2 other people.
Exactly, yeah.
The 2 other games, 2
Supposed to
other.
be
That's
4.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the attorneys just
So
got
here we are,
crafty.
halfway through it, and the bottom just fell out of the North American video game market. Jack Tramiel said, "You're all fired. P.S. Oh yeah, this game."
Oh boy.
And so, since
Right.
Atari could not simply terminate the game, Atari's barristers were deft enough to throttle it. And in another foreboding omen, the 3rd game, Waterworld, was only available to Atari Club members. And to further dumb it down, it featured
Waterworld,
only...
take a sip.
It featured, is this one of those moments you give me compliments? It featured only 8 rooms, a hint book, and a mere 4-word solution. Hasten toward revealed crown. But those that survived the aquatic challenges in search of the crown of life were told that the contest was delayed until late 1984.
Oh my gosh.
That is, until it was delayed until 1985.
When did it start? It started
The
when?
whole thing started?
The whole thing started?
82?
82.
Wow. Okay. All right.
In 1985, potential warriors were once again asked to submit essays to narrow down the challengers to 10 or 15. Numbers vary according to the lore. But then they were told they didn't make the cut.
None of them?
According to this version of the story, as I'm telling you now. By 1986, it was clear the 3rd contest would never take place. Swordquest, the most bizarre, ambitious treasure hunt in the history of video games, was over. Or was it?
Percussion accompaniment with that one.
That was amazing. That was
We'll have
amazing.
to record that in the studio to make it sound.
Yeah.
We can cut in the Foley later.
What happened to all this stuff?
That's a great question.
That's exactly the right question to ask at this point in the show.
Yes.
In another 35 minutes, we'll get to the answer. But first...
Well, in another 35 minutes, we'll be in the next panel.
But first, available now at the Franklin Mint for a mere $50. Although there was no public competition for Waterworld's Crown of Life, folklore tells of a contest held in secret. In response to a query in 1984 questioning if the entire Swordquest series was a, quote, phony come-on, end quote, Electronic Fun magazine stated that the first 3 contests had taken place. Until his untimely death in 2020, gaming historian Kurt Vendel was adamant that Atari had held the match and that the Crown of Life had been claimed by a mysterious champion. The final chapter, Air World, however, died on the vine. Despite tales that the game was playable, Todd Fry, who worked on all 4 games, said it was only 20% complete before being unceremoniously terminated. The game, not Todd Fry. He's still with us.
Excellent clarification.
And while others claim to have seen a script or storyboard for the comic, artist George Perez dismissed this as nonsense. By the mid-1980s, Swordquest was truly dead. But nothing stays buried forever.
And you know what's uncanny is that those games are so samey and so formulaic. It wasn't like there was that much more work to do. New little puzzles and mini games. It's the same goofy guy running between rooms and scaling and blocky stuff.
Yeah.
You would think Airworld, assuming there was a budget and employees and a will to do so, you could have done Airworld. Yeah, all those things.
If only. Employees, budget, if only.
Right.
Simple as that.
And anyone cared any longer.
Yes.
Then you would think they could have gotten it out, but
Darth Vader was in charge.
he was right. You're
No
a strong
fun.
force. Your lack of revenue disturbs me.
There you go. Now he nails it. And no Kickstarter.
Oh,
True.
yeah.
Unless Jack Trammell, which I looked it up. It says Trammell, John. I thought it was Tramiel too, but Tramiel, but Trammell seems to be the... Anyway. But yeah, unless Jack Trammell was the one kicking.
You mean Conan?
He's nodding knowingly over there.
Even stronger than the 4 elements of Swordquest is nostalgia. That's why we're all here at Southern Fried Gaming Expo. In 2014, more than 30 years after the video game crash, the mysteries of the treasure buried in the New Mexico desert were unearthed, revealing a trove of E.T. and other video game cartridges.
Yay!
Among others, the dig was attended by past guest Howard Scott Warshaw.
Oh.
Well, it was a perfect opportunity. Thank you, Marcus. Well publicized, including a documentary, it helped draw attention to later chapters of the Atari saga. And so it came to be that 3 years later, Dynamic Comics released a new Swordquest comic book, telling the tale of an adult gamer, some would say a Gen X grown-up, trying to track down and play Airworld to complete his childhood quest.
Oh.
And last year, Atari 50, a compilation of over 100 video games and a documentary of the history of Atari, finally completed the Swordquest saga by releasing Airworld. Players may at long last claim the sword of ultimate sorcery, in the game at least. But what about the treasures in the real world, Kat?
That's what I want to know. Where's the treasures?
Those forged by the smiths of the Franklin Mint.
What Will you're missing out on is the looks of absolute shock. They're like, oh, that game happened? What about the treasure? Like, I can see it in her face because this is all new to her. That's why I told you I was loving. We're all approaching this from different angles. Because I played it, you know it well, and Kat is like, I'm ready to hear a new story. And it has all the drama you'd expect.
We're at a point now. I'm invested. Yes.
Treasures. Give me Franklin Mint treasures, please.
Fire World. What's that? You've had enough of the show?
Marcus.
Oh, that like Kat now?
So
Just stop the show so Kat never knows what happens. We know she doesn't know
In
how
the
to
style
Google.
of Swordquest, we're going to end this show unceremoniously in the middle.
Fireworld champion Michael Rideout is still in possession of the Chalice of Light, which he secured in a safe deposit box. But according to both Rideout and historian Kurt Vendel, while Stephen Bell may have kept the gems and a small sword emblem that hung from the talisman of penultimate truth, he melted down the medallion and sold the precious metals. Man, he really wanted to get away from his parents.
Right, that was the car.
Buy a car.
The car kid. Okay, yep. Wow.
No one has ever come forward as the owner of the Crown of Life. But if the Waterworld contest was held, someone has it. Conventional wisdom dictates that the final treasure, the Sword of Ultimate Sorcery, valued at $50,000, was returned to the Franklin Mint to be melted down and repurposed as a dozen commemorative coins or an enterprise, perhaps. But eagle-eyed employees noticed that Jack Trammell had a sword hanging in his office.
That sneaky bastard.
And while some claimed it was a family heirloom, we may never know for certain. And thus, our tale begins as it began, mired in mystery. Or does it? I think there's only like one more page left.
It begins just as it began.
Okay, Marcus, let me go back and do that just for...
No
one will know. And thus, our tale ends as it began, mired in mystery, or does it?
Or does it?
Although a version of Air World was... Oh, wait, let me play this other music instead. Let's see, do I want to play that? No, it's fine. Okay. Although a version of Air World was eventually released, the solution does not include a phrase. The Swordquest quatrain, begun over 40 years ago, remains incomplete. Quest in tower, talisman found. Leads to chalice, power abounds. Haste toward revealed crown. The first 3 games tracked a series of clues from video game to comic. So, is it just coincidence that the recent years have given us a new video game and a new comic? Perhaps the clues are still out there to lead a new champion to the sword of ultimate sorcery, or Jack Trammell's office. Perhaps the true Swordquest is just waiting for a brave soul to accept the challenge. Will you take up the adventure?
No.
I thought I was playing disco for a second. So that's it. That's the whole story there. I mean, how do I stop this? There you go. So yeah, it's kind of nuts.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that we could do something like that today, obviously using the technology we have. Make it quaint, more like a vintage game maybe in some sense, but now we have esports. So folks are competing for real prizes like that all the time. But it's different. It's different than being able to, solve some sort of mystery from your own home in your living room with your friends gathered around the TV. And
this is reminding me of Ready Player One in a way.
Certainly.
Yes.
As well it should. Yes.
Do you think I forget the author's
Ernest
name.
Cline.
Yeah, Ernest Cline.
Do you think he drew upon that?
Well, he certainly drew upon Adventure, which was featured prominently, the existence of Easter eggs and those sorts of things. Okay. And maybe the beauty of, if the games themselves were not of the quality you would hope to follow up these kinds of titles, it certainly was emblematic of the era in which we grew up, this merging of the emerging digital technology with the analog of a comic book in my hand, and the two are connected and interweaved, and you can enjoy an immersive multimedia experience, but it's a comic book and an Atari game, which is really neat. And now if they did it, type these codes into your phone, scan this QR code, it's going to stay in the digital realm.
Right.
Yeah, but you'd like to take a step back and enjoy that analog facet. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to John's point, Ernest Cline, the book opens with the reference to Adventure's Easter egg. And I believe, if anyone else has remembered, I believe later in the book, Swordquest is one of the challenges he has.
Oh, that's what I'm wondering. Did he specifically include? I couldn't remember if he included
is that
Swordquest.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Been a while. Yeah.
Well. All right. I guess that's it. Yes. Yeah, I do not know.
Of the Swordquest series?
Yeah.
Well, they only sold 3, and they were of declining value. I mean, they were less interesting almost, but there are stalwart people that still, it's almost like they don't have the value today that they would to replay because they were about a real contest in the world, and you can't do that. And you already know the answer. Is the other problem. Yeah, I would be interested to see what sales numbers were. Did it come even close to matching the $150,000 plus all the promotion that they nailed into that? Well,
but they
didn't finish, so.
Well, for $25,000.
That would be lovely. Maybe it was
question.
Me.
Yeah, $25,000 in 1980 could get you some sweet ride, I would imagine.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
No kidding.
Oh, man.
Well, he kept the gemstones and the little sword, so maybe we'll say $20,000, but still. They still released a couple in 88, I think, and maybe even 89. That was well after the crash, but they were pumping out titles for the Atari 2600 Junior which was then relegated to the kind of like $50 game thing for the little brother. So they were still putting out some titles later. I'm not going to be Wikipedia here, but I'm going to say they stopped by 90-ish, but they were still putting stuff out late 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, although we had this video game crash, it was exclusively to America, essentially, because, Nintendo came in and was having a wild success certainly overseas. And then we had the Famicom with the Famicom system, and then shortly thereafter the NES in US, right? And
there's the benefit of the video game crash in North America that people don't tend to mention, which is when the values of all the games that were in the stores crashed, less affluent families who could not afford them could now snatch them up at clearance prices and start to build a groundswell. People went, oh, video games, these are cool and cheap as hell. And then, hey, look, here comes Nintendo to capture that market that were buying super discount, what you would consider crappier games. There were certainly less fidelity to them. Nintendo came in with greater fidelity at full market value and kicked it off again.
But there was a continuity. An underground.
Not with successful market share, but there was a continuity of let's bring more gamers in because it's super cheap.
Right, of users.
Yep.
And Nintendo learned a lesson from Atari that they control the products.
No
you
crapware.
can't have third-party competitors creating these garbage games for their system.
Right. Now, third parties were allowed, but each third party was only allowed 2 titles per year.
Right.
They had to pick the cream of the crop to make sure they maximized their revenue.
And then you'd get that seal.
Yep. And there was a chip in there in each cartridge that made it authentic and a seal that said your quality seal. Therefore, Nintendo became equivalent to quality because they forced it.
Hey, I've got to say a very special thanks to George Krupski.
Oh, yes.
Our friend who's a screenwriter and writes a whole other things as well. In fact, he just was writing the expansion stories for Firefly, the game, the 20th anniversary. He wrote the expansion packs. He did a fundraiser. I didn't tell you, or a Kickstarter. It was one of those type things. I didn't tell you guys. We had, before it was starting, we did hey, please help them out. Their goal was like $150,000 or something. They raised over $1 million within like a week or something like that.
The power of podcasting.
So George Krupski, our buddy who's writing content like that, also wrote our story today. So special thanks to George
for him.
Oh my gosh.
For all of his research and his clever writing.
Thank you, George.
And that was our show.
And our show is brought to you every week, thanks in part to our early adopters like Kathy Burke, Karen Flieger, and Rick Parker, who is sitting right here with us. So excited to meet you, Rick.
I mean, poor Kathy Burke and the others, though, right?
Right.
I even had to switch the order.
Rick Parker and these two. Wow, Kat.
A bunch of other people.
They could have shown up.
They could have shown up.
They could have shown up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kat. Yeah, and
I even had it in a different order, a different rotation, but at last minute I had to switch it around so Rick could have the flourish. All right.
It's critical.
And also, thank you especially to our Secret of Our Success level Patreon supporters like Tony Great, Brendan Greer, Nick Guillory,
Go, Nick.
John Henderson.
How's she going to handle this?
Craig Coletta. And with us right now, Brad Bowman and Marcus Taylor. So happy you're here.
Thank you so much. Hey, guys, again, folks here gathered here today, you don't know who the hell we are, and that's fine. But we do host a show called 1980s Now every week. You can find us on any podcast platform. I could even give you a business card that has a QR code that you could scan. That'll take you to the app.
Could you say that faster, real quick?
But hey, for folks they'll slow it down later. You can do that on the thing. They're going to speed up the whole rest of the show. And then they'll slow down that part.
You could use a time code to get to it.
If you guys stick around, I'm going to say goodbye to this recording here, and then we'll give something away. Hey, all right. Hey, so we will talk to you next time on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.